Hello to everybody, and thanks for joining us this week. I'm Nathan Flinchbaugh.
And I'm Amanda Reynolds.
You may have noticed the surroundings look a little different. We have a new studio, and it has a great view of Old Main right behind Amanda's shoulder. Pretty cool.
Yes, we're definitely glad that Up in the Air has joined the technological world.
Absolutely. We have a great episode planned out for you guys.
We sure do. We'll have a visit from some students in the Weather Risk Management Club, a feature about wildfires and climate change, your climate outlook, and of course, much more.
But for right now, let's start with Update in the Air.
How much is too much? That's often the question hurricane forecasters must ask themselves when they issue a forecast. Making sure that the risk is properly communicated while not going into hype mode is often a difficult decision. But in regards to Hurricane Patricia, they made the right call. Hurricane Patricia quickly went from being a tropical storm in the Pacific Ocean just west of the central coast of Mexico to a full-blown Category 5 hurricane with the highest sustained winds that had ever been accurately measured. As soon as Patricia made landfall in the rural central Mexico, it was ripped apart by the mountainous terrain and quickly dissipated. While much of the media was quick to declare Patricia a busted forecast, Marshall Shepard, the director of atmospheric science at the University of Georgia, says otherwise. Shepard asked, "How can you overhype a record-shattering hurricane packing EF5 tornado winds and approaching a major country? Just because the eye of the storm missed major cities such as Puerto Vallarta and media considered it a bust." Now, fortunately, because Patricia made landfall, tons of media coverage that allowed the potential risks to be properly communicated to those who needed to hear it. We just need to make sure that next time a record-breaking hurricane comes around, we don't just ride the hype train and properly communicate the risks of that specific storm.
Costa Rica's Turrialba volcano released a column of gas and ash into the sky on Tuesday in the latest of a series of eruptions at the site in central Costa Rica. The eruption, which occurred at about 8:30 Tuesday morning, is a continuation of a series of eruptions which have been generated since the end of the week. Costa Rica's National Emergency Commission told QCostaRica.com that the volcano was especially active over the preceding weekend with at least 26 eruptions. The Turrialba Volcano National Park, about an hour's drive away from the capital in San Jose, has been shut down since 2009 due to the increased activity at the site.
If you were asked where the most number of tornadoes have occurred in the past 30 years, where would you choose? Oklahoma, the Central Plains? Well, according to a study done by the Storm Prediction Center, the answer is actually northeastern Colorado. The study made the point that not all tornadoes form from supercell thunderstorms like one would normally think of. For example, the high tornado counts in Colorado are actually an artifact of higher numbers of gustnadoes and landspouts, both non-supercell tornadoes. A NOAA research meteorologist, Dan Lindsay, pointed out that northeast Colorado gets a reasonably large number of non-supercell tornadoes due in part to a mesoscale terrain-influenced boundary that frequently sets up there, in addition to some supercell tornadoes. Also of note is the larger counts down in Florida. This is due to the fact that they experience a large percentage of waterspouts, basically a weak tornado over water. In fact, according to Jordan McLeod, a Southeastern Regional Climate Center meteorologist, Florida may actually be one of the few states in the U.S. where the frequency of classic supercell tornadoes is significantly lower than other tornado phenomena. We must be careful interpreting this data because it shows raw tornado count and does not account for any size differences between the counties. For example, a smaller county would have less of a chance of being hit by a tornado than a larger county in the exact same geographic location. Either way, looking at data like this can prove to be very useful when looking for long-term trends.
Several rounds of heavy rainfall over the weekend nearly forced the city of New Orleans to move Halloween at the last moment. Local officials stated while they could not forcibly make trick-or-treaters go out Friday night instead of the previously planned Saturday night, it was in their best interest in order to avoid heavy rain and potentially strong thunderstorms. The National Weather Service chimed in on Thursday, forecasting 2 to 4 inches of rain to fall across the region on Saturday night, and that, quote, local ghosts and goblins will likely not be happy with this forecast. Many local towns and parishes in the New Orleans area followed suit by moving Halloween at the last minute to Friday night to avoid potential weather-related issues on Saturday night. We'll be back in a moment with more.
We have members of the Weather Risk Management Club here to talk about the multi-year drought here in California. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. California has been experiencing setbacks due to the drought for years now. California has experienced the driest 4 winters from 2011 to 2015 since 1895. Anomalies in sea surface temperatures have had a major role in the continuation of this drought. Exceptional drought is shown in the graphic as dark red and dominates nearly 50% of the state. The U.S. Drought Monitor Classification Scheme says that exceptional drought includes widespread crop pasture shortages, as well as shortages of water in reservoirs, streams, and wells, creating water emergencies. In addition, more than 70% of the state is experiencing at least extreme drought.
That's right, but it's not all bad news. This unfortunate sea surface temperature pattern is expected to shift due to the forecast of the El Niño Southern Oscillation. The El Niño should be able to guide more moisture into the southwest United States, including Southern California.
So will this El Niño help California to recover?
It is important to remember that many other factors affect California precipitation, not just the El Niño. An article by the Climate Program Office said that, on a purely accounting basis, statewide precipitation would have to be at least double the normal to fully recover. However, history and recent climate models have shown a significant link between the strength of this El Niño and increased precipitation in California. The Climate Program Office also says, history reveals that since 1877, 3 very wet years occurred over Northern California in tandem with the 3 strongest El Niños.
I can imagine that this is wreaking havoc on crops and the whole agricultural industry in California. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
That is exactly right. Farmers in the Central Valley alone may experience an $810 million loss this year, spend an extra $453 million to pump water out of the ground, and the state will likely lose 17,000 agricultural jobs. Almonds, one of California's most lucrative agricultural industries, has especially struggled due to this drought.
Almond popularity has skyrocketed in recent years, and the almond industry is now the leading agricultural export in California. This industry adds $11 billion to California's economy and produces 80% of the world's supplies.
Most nuts require a very large amount of water to grow. It takes approximately 1 whole gallon of water to grow just a single almond. Naturally, this drought has greatly affected the almond. You can see from the chart here that almonds require over 1,200 billion gallons of water a year. Therefore, almond costs have increased by more than 50% in the past 2 years. Companies are nervous to raise their prices too much in order to not scare away customers. Almond prices have gone from $3.30 a unit to mid-$4.
Thanks, guys, for joining us this week. We look forward to more of your club members to join us next week.
Welcome back to the show.
Joining us this week are Ross, Jake, and Corey from the Climate Dynamics class with information on how climate change is affecting wildfires.
Climate is defined as long-term averages and variations in weather measured over a period of several decades. Many aspects of the global climate are changing rapidly. A certain amount of continued warming of the planet is projected to occur as a result of human-induced emissions to date. Another 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit increase would be expected over the next few decades, even if all emissions from human activities suddenly stopped. Higher emission levels will result in more warming and thus more severe impacts on human society and the natural world. Data shows that not only has the maximum temperature increased in the United States over recent years, but also the minimum temperature. As the climate warms, moisture and precipitation levels are changing, with wet areas becoming wetter and dry areas becoming drier. High spring and summer temperatures and early spring snow melting typically causes soil to be drier for longer, increasing the likelihood of drought and a longer wildfire season.
Longer fire seasons will result as spring runoff occurs earlier, summer heat builds up more quickly, and warm conditions extend further into the fall. Western forests typically become combustible within a month after snow melt finishes. Snowpack is now melting 1 to 4 weeks earlier than it did 50 years ago. Drier conditions will increase the probability of fire occurrence. Summertime temperatures in western North America are projected to increase 4 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit higher by mid-century, enhancing evaporation rates, while precipitation is expected to decrease up to 15%. More fuel for forest fires will become available because warmer and drier conditions are conducive to widespread beetle and other insect infestations.
Since 1960, when records began, the average frequency of wildfires has increased steadily as the years go. Not only has the frequency of wildfires increased, but the average area burned each year during the wildfires has also increased. In the 1990s, there were 6 total years with less than 3 million acres burned. In the 2000s, there were 0 years with less than 3 million acres burned. In 2014, the 3 largest wildfires took place in the Pacific Northwest. That included Buzzard Complex in Oregon, which burned over 395,000 acres of land, the Carlton Complex fire in Washington State, which burned over 256,000 acres of land, and the Funny River fire in Alaska, which burned over 194,000 acres of land. As the climate continues to change, events like these will become more frequent. For Up in the Air, I'm Jake Siegel.
And I'm Corey Wright.
And I'm Ross Caruso.
Thanks for tuning back in.
We've seen some pretty warm temperatures this past week here in State College. Casey is standing by at our brand new climate wall to give us more on the forecast. Casey.
Thanks, Nathan and Amanda. It definitely has been unseasonably warm for this time of year. Already reached 70 degrees in October. Very rare thing to be seen. And looking at the fall foliage, most of the leaves have already turned brown past peak colors and falling off the trees. Portions of the Pennsylvania still have peak color on them, but those will be transitioning out later this week. Looking at the leaf drop totals for the eastern portions of the United States, Maine and Vermont definitely seeing trees that are bare, and portions of Pennsylvania, southeastern and western portions still have leaves on the trees, and those will be dropping later this month as well. Looking at the October wrap-up, we do see temperatures. 73 was our warmest high, and our coolest high was 43, pretty low. For our warmest low was 52 degrees, and our coolest day for the low overnight, it was 30 degrees. Our rainiest day, we did receive about 1.45 inches of snow. And our snowiest day, we did receive trace amounts actually, so definitely snow fallen in October, which is kind of rare to see here. Looking at our climate info for November, average high about 53 for November 6th, 37 for our average low, and that gives us a mean temperature of about 45 degrees. Looking at precipitation for the month of November, 3.34 inches is the average. And snow, definitely we will be expecting some snow totals to accumulate. 2.3 inches is the average for November. Looking at snow across the United States right now, not much in eastern portions of the United States, but as we look into the west, definitely some snow in Denver and Billings. 5.1% of the U.S. is covered in snow right now. Looking at our temperature outlook for November 11th to the 17th, above normal temperatures definitely State College and all of the eastern side of the United States, as well as we get into Texas and the other sides, cooler temperatures as well, below normal for western portions of the United States, and that is why they're receiving some snow as well instead of rain, turning those precipits into snow because of these colder temperatures. Looking at the precipitation outlook, above normal as well for all of the eastern portion of the United States, but as we get into the western portion, still below normal amounts of precipitation. San Francisco, definitely about average for this time of year. And up here, we will be seeing above normal precipitation amounts as well. Looking at the drought monitor, definitely in San Francisco and parts of California, still a drought is occurring. And as we move over into the east, still some spotty places that have droughts. Not as bad as California is experiencing right now, but definitely to be looked at when taking a look at the drought monitor. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Casey.
Well, that does it for this week.
As always, a big thank you goes out to all of the Penn State students who contributed to the show, and to you, the viewers.
Tune in next week to catch another episode, but for now, I'm Amanda Reynolds.
And I'm Nathan Flinchbaugh. See you next time, Up in the Air.